Bienvenido a otro video del Colegio Boston. No olvides suscribirte, activar la campanita, darle like y compartir.
Hello, good morning students. My name is Victor Manuel. I'm your teacher at Boston School College. Today we're going to be talking about the contingency plan COVID-19 of the Blue Book tutorial for April 20th to May 1st. This is because if you remember, nowadays we are living in the contingency of the pandemic of COVID-19. Remember that we have to be working in our houses and we have to be checking the homework, we have to be doing the exercises, and in this case I recommend you that if you have the student's book, you can do the exercises in the student's book. But if you don't have it, don't worry, you just have to open the file with the images, you copy the exercises into your notebook, you write the page, you write the unit, and you write the exercise. Then you take a picture of that exercise and you upload it to the mail that you have. Remember that in this case, we are using the Blue Book. My name is Victor Manuel, so you have to look for the email of victormanuelboyas@gmail.com. And also there is the practice book. The practice book, if you remember, you don't have it, but don't worry. In the same file, you can also find the exercises and the activities from the practice book. In this case, I actually do recommend you to copy the exercises in your notebook or white sheets of paper and to take a picture and upload them back into the email. This is a recommendation for you. If you want to print the images of the practice book, you can do it. No problem. But the same, you have to print, you have to solve it, you have to take the picture, and you have to send it back to the email. This is how I am going to be receiving the homework that you are going to be sending me throughout these days. Remember, this is contingency plan COVID-19 Blue Book tutorial for April 20th to May 1st. Now, to start with, I'm going to tell you about a little trip that I had. The first topic that we're going to talk about is flying home. You know, let's say that the last month I had to travel from Cancun to Mexico City. But in this case, first I had to go to the check-in desk. In this case, the check-in desk is the place where I had to go and I had to register my luggage. You know, the luggage is the bags that you carry with you when you go to another place, when you travel to other places, in this case using the airport. Now, the first place that I had to go was the check-in table. In this case, there was a lady who was receiving all the papers. She was asking me for my boarding pass. You know, my boarding pass contains the information about my flight. It contains the date, my name, my full name, in this case Victor Manuel Boyas, and it contains also information about the flight, when is it traveling, well, in this case, when I am traveling, and the date and the hour and the airline. Now, in the boarding pass, it also contains my seat. In this case, the seat that I had, it was a really bad one. And you know why? This was because I had to order the seat previously to the flight, but in this case, I didn't. So when I arrived to the airport, I asked for a seat and they gave me the worst seat. I was in between two other people and I couldn't be in silence in all the flight. Imagine this, 2 hours flying from Cancun to Mexico City with 2 kids to the sides, one to the left, one to the right. It was not really necessary, but I mean, that is what happens when you don't choose your ticket beforehand and when you don't check and register beforehand. Now, in order for me to enter to the airplane, I had to go to a security point. In this case, a security checkpoint. Now, in this security checkpoint, they had to check my hand luggage. You know, the hand luggage is the one that you carry with you when you go into the airplane. Remember, there are 2 types of luggage. There is the big size, the one that goes inside the airplane, but in the bottom part of the airplane. That one you have to register it before. And then there is the hand luggage. The hand luggage is smaller. In this case, it's small so that it can fit in the cabin, the overhead compartment is the one that you are going to be using to put your hand luggage. In this case, my hand luggage was not really big. I mean, actually it was just with like a school bag, so it was no problem. I mean, it was good enough, it was small enough to fit in the overhead compartment of the airplane. Now, I gotta tell you that because I was traveling from Cancun to Mexico City, I wanted to buy some souvenirs. So I had to look around in the airport, and there was this shop. Actually, it was a duty-free store. Duty-free store are the ones that we use when we want to buy something in the airport, but at a lower cost. In this case, the lower cost, it was minus. Actually, it has no taxes. That is a really actually good thing, because when you don't have taxes, you don't have to pay extra. So in this case, the taxes, they were really good to be avoided. But then again, because I was late to the airport, I really couldn't find anything that I really liked in the time that I had. So I didn't have time to buy any presents in the duty-free store because they were expensive, not so much, but just a little bit, and I didn't have time to look around. So I couldn't buy any kind of duty-free store items in that shop. Well, anyhow, that's what happens when you don't find enough time to go to the airport beforehand. But anyhow, I mean, my travel was good. I had my hand luggage in the overhead compartment. The other luggage was on the bottom part of the airport. I mean, the airplane. But guess what? Terrible thing happened to me. When I arrived to Mexico City, my luggage, my big luggage, the one that goes inside the airplane, was not there. You know what? The airport lost my luggage. It was so terrible, but I mean like so terrible, because I had to wait 24 hours to get my luggage. I had to give my information, personal information. I had to tell them the items that I had inside my luggage, and I had to call them and call them and call them. Eventually, the airport said that they found my luggage and I could go and I could recover my luggage, but it was so terrible. Now, coming back, I also need to tell you about a plane that I took last year, but this time it was to Thailand. Thailand is a really beautiful place, and actually I get to see a little bit of the culture of Thailand's novice Buddhist monks. In this case, the Thailand's novice Buddhist monks are people who are training themselves to be monks, but they are very severe, they are very strict. In this case, people from Thailand, they go into become a Buddhist monk because they want to be in touch with God, in this case with Buddha. Now, these people, they are very religious. They have to be praying all day long. Well, I mean, they also need to eat. And actually, something that is very fascinating about people who are eating in Thailand, becoming Buddhist monks, is that they do not get the food from like trading things or buying or selling. No, actually, they have to go into the markets and they have to be begging. Begging is like asking for people to give them food. And they also told me that they cannot have more than 2 meals in a day. So imagine, they can have the breakfast and they can have the lunch, but that's it. I mean, in the evening, all that they can have is only liquids. There cannot be any other food past the evening time. Actually, this is really interesting because, normally here in Mexico, we eat in the breakfast, we eat in the lunch, and maybe in the evening, we also get something to eat, but not in there. In there, they only have 2 meals, and the third one is only about liquids, which is really interesting, Now, like I was telling you, people in here, they have to beg on the street. Can you imagine that? Begging for food on the streets? I mean, we usually see people on the streets that they are asking for money and they're begging for food, but they are not Buddhists. I mean, they could become Buddhist monks if they were to go to Thailand, but they're not. And one other thing that is also really interesting about these people is that they need to cut their head, shaved hair, completely full shaved. They have to be completely bald, and they also cannot have eyebrows. Why? Well, this is only a religious matter. It's something that they need to do. It's something that they must do. It is absolutely necessary. If they want to become Thailand novice Buddhist monks, they have to do it. This is actually something fascinating because people from other cultures, they also have some things, some matters that they have to take into consideration. Now, while I was also there in Thailand, I got to see spirit houses from that Thai culture. Spirit houses are a resemblance of the original house of the owner. Imagine, for example, here in Mexico, we know that architects, they do the plans and the footprints of the house of your dreams. Maybe when you want to make a construction of the house of your dreams, you go to an architect and he makes the footprints. He or she tells you, what? Here you can have the bathroom, here you can have your jar, you can have your kitchen, your bathroom, your living room. Maybe here you can have your swimming pool. Here you can have the space for your pets, maybe for a small pet or a big pet, depending the case. Now, this is what the architects, they do to show you how your house, your dream house, is going to be built. But, going back in here talking about Thai culture, they make like footprints, but in this case, in real material. They can use cement, they can use wood, they can use steel, and they are going to show you like a resemblance in a small of the house. So in this case, they have to be giving like really specific details, and they can be only specific details about the house, or they can be religious topics. I mean, you can have like specific details for like Buddha, or like you can have flowers. There are different types of spirit houses. They can come in a wide variety of styles. Sometimes they are simple copies of of the main building of the property, and other times they are elaborate models of religious buildings. Now, in this case, every day people, they need to be keeping the spirit houses beautiful. They can adorn it with flowers, incense, and food to keep the spirits happy. This is something that they think. They think that, they can have their property house, but they need to have a spirit house. Spirit house is for the people that they love, but that had already passed away. People that died in the past. Maybe the grandfather, the grandmother, people from the past that were really loved. They are the ones that are going to be going to live in these spirit houses. Normally, the spirit houses, they are on the outside part of the houses, or maybe inside the house. But they are very religious in that matter. Now, to continue with, we're going to be talking about changes that we would like to do, or wishes, using second conditional. Now, we need to acknowledge or take into consideration that by using the second conditional, we are talking about wishes that we have from an unreal past into the present or future. So let's think about this. Unreal past. It means something from the past that was not completed, that didn't happen, but that we wish it had happened. Or we wish something from the past that affects the present or the future. Now, this is the second conditional is also to talk about changes that we would like to make it happen, but that we can't make them at the moment because we have no means to do it. We don't have the way to do it. For example, let's say that I want to buy a big car, like a luxurious Lamborghini. So I can say, if I were rich, I would buy a Lamborghini. In this case, we're talking about that in the past, I had no money. In the present, I don't have the money. But if I were rich, if I had the money, I would buy the car. I would have the means to buy the Lamborghini. It's not something that is happening in this moment, but it can happen. This is my wish. This is something that I would like to change about my present life. Now, we also need to be careful to use the correct structure or formula and follow the pattern correctly to avoid mistakes. This is actually very important. You need to be very careful in the structure. You cannot use structures from other patterns. They have to be in the correct pattern. So for example, we see in this page, it says, second conditional, we have if plus past, would plus infinitive. We have the example, if I were rich, I would travel around the world. So if we have that is like the if clause, and then we have the if clause is like the action, and the other part is like the reaction, So we have if, we have were, that is the past, we have would, which is the modal verb, and we have the infinitive travel. Remember that in this case, the verb, it needs to be in the base form. It needs to be in the simple form. It cannot go into past, it cannot go into future. No, it has to be in the base form. We use the structure if plus past plus would plus infinitive to talk about an improbable or hypothetical situation and its consequence. We have, for example, second conditional. The structure is if plus past simple. In this case, in the verb to be, remember that we use in the past simple, for example, I was, she was, he was, it was. Well, something that is incredible, but it happens here. We don't use was, we use were. Then we have the present conditional, would or wouldn't, plus the verb in the verb form, in the base form. The usage, we have imaginary situations in the present or future. Examples, if I won $1 million, I would buy a new car. Like I was telling you, if I were rich, I would buy a Lamborghini. If I were you, I would quit smoking. If I were the president, I would lower taxes. They would stay longer if they had more time. If I won $1 million, I could stop working. If I had more free time, I could travel around the world. These are very simple examples on how to use the second conditional. Now, remember, we use the second conditional to talk about unreal situations. The formation, the usage, the structure, the formula is if plus the past simple, conditional, and infinitive. In affirmative, we have if I won the lottery, I would buy a house. Negative. If I didn't win the lottery, I wouldn't buy a house. And in a question, what would you do if you won the lottery? Oh, I would buy a house. Okay? So we have like the action and the reaction, like the cause and the effect. Let's see the grammar structure. We have the if clause and the main clause. Remember that in this case we have two sentences in one sentence. So the first sentence is the if clause and the second sentence is the main clause. We have if and past simple in the if clause, and in the main clause we have would, could, or might as the modal verbs that we can use, and we have the verb in the simple form. In this case, the modal verb would, could, or might, it is modifying the verb. So the verb is in the simple form. It is important to take into account that in conditionals, it is usual to see he, she, and it with were instead of was. Example, if he were friendly, we would be good friends, Maybe you can say, if she were friendly, we would be good friends. Now, the modal verbs that we can use are could, might, and would. And finally, here we have some examples. In this case, you can use these examples to have like ways to say the second conditional. You know, like for example, if I had a pot of gold, I would, maybe I would buy a house, I would buy a mansion, I would buy my Lamborghini. You know, if I were a genie, I would maybe make all my wishes come true. Or you can also say, I might see the world, like travel around the world. Or you know, could say, if I were a genie, I could buy airplanes to go around the world. You know, these are different forms that you can use. Let's say, if I were a superhero, I would save the people from the bad people. That could also be something good. You know, these are different examples that you can use. Please remember that you have to send your homeworks back to the email. Thank you very much for paying attention to this class. It was my pleasure. Have a nice day.